it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 609th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Nancy Wolf. Now, Nancy is not here today. Hopefully, she'll be here next week. The show consists of news articles with links to the original articles that have been posted on my blog, geoharvey.com. If you go down the screen to the description of the show, assuming that you can get there, there is a link at the end of that description that goes, it's a tiny URL link that goes to a website where all of the articles in the show are online, and you can go there, click on an article that you want, and use the link there to get to the original article. You can read it. You can also get to the articles by going to my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, and using that. Okay, we are starting this show on the 23rd of January, which is a Thursday. Today is the 30th. And we're starting with an item that comes from, excuse me, a site called Welcome to the United Nations. The title is Solar Energy Has Already Won. Now the real work begins to bring light to those left behind. In rural Latin America, a single solar panel can mean that a child studies by electric light rather than by candlelight. Or a family with cows can keep their milk refrigerated, protecting their income and improving food security. I really like that picture of the young person studying by candle. It's something that is it just has a nice layout. It works well, but the idea that a huge difference can be made for the cost of a solar panel and a battery and some ancillary equipment is really important. For a person living in the United States who has a lot of money, the cost of that is you could provide 10 families with each with a solar panel and a battery and the equipment for the cost of eating out if you're going to an expensive restaurant. An amount of money that is not particularly important to a lot of us is very important to those families. And the fact is, if we're going to deal with climate change, we're going to have to deal with it as a world, not as individuals, not as states, not as nations. We have to deal with it as a world. We have to approach it from the point of view that nobody is going to be left behind. So that, I think, is important. Next, we're going to an item from ABC News. That is a church in Los Angeles County. I forget exactly where it is, but it's after the Eaton fire. The title of this article is California Fires Live Updates. New Los Angeles fire explodes to over 9,000 acres. The two largest fires, the Pasadena fire in Pacific Palisades and the Eaton fire near Pasadena, remain active. And actually, those two fires are still active today as I'm recording the show. And though they are both nearly completely contained. Neither one of them is 100% contained at this point. One of the latest, the Hughes fire in Castaic area, now covers 9,400 acres. Actually, today it's 10,400 acres. It closed I-5 and has prompted evacuation orders for tens of thousands of people. There has been rain in Southern California. This is typical of how these fires go. They start burning, and the California fire people are really good at their jobs, but the fires in Southern California are just overwhelming. So it takes a lot to contain them, and it takes a lot to contain them. And so what happens is they'll go on. These fires, some of them have been going on for over a month, and they go on until the rain comes. And the rain came. In that area, there has been 1/6 of an inch of rain since May. So the previous 10 months of rain were not, if they all came at once, would not have been worth much. But the fire has been largely dealt with by rain. I'm sorry that I've got something in my throat. Okay, the next item comes from Clean Technica. And this is quite a picture, I think. That, of course, is the Cog Railroad on Mount Washington. I've been up there a couple of times, and it's a trip that I would call stunning. That locomotive that you see has a boiler that is on an angle, and which is why the locomotive looks like it's kind of out of some kind of weird cartoon or something. In the old days, and when I went up, that was the coal in that coal carrying car was shoveled continuously into the firebox as that train was going up. This is from Clean Technica. The title is Mount Washington Cog Railway Goes Electric. Mount Washington, while still preserving history, is also highlighting ongoing innovation. Engineering students from the University of New Hampshire are working alongside the Mount Washington rail staff to develop an all-electric locomotive to replace its iconic steam engine. Actually, I think that what's happening is that one steam engine is being replaced, and Mount Washington has several steam engines, and the impression that I have, which dates back probably 15 or 20 years, is that they use a couple of those, depending upon the circumstances. Those engines have to be cleaned out every once in a while, and it takes a while to do that. So they would, I believe they would swap those engines back and forth. It appears in the article that they are adding one fully electric locomotive. And I think that means that the coal-fired locomotives will still be in use. But that is a very impressive trip going up the mountain on the Cog Railway. And by the way, if you look behind that locomotive, you can just see a car on a road, and that car is coming up. This picture was taken, I believe, from the observatory at the top of the mountain. It's an interesting trip, and one of the things that's really interesting about it as you go up the mountain, and I have, as I said, gone up a couple of times on the railway and a couple of times on the road, You go through climate changes that are really kind of dramatic, and they happen over a distance of 50 or 80 feet. You notice them if you go up on the, well, you notice them if you're looking for them, no matter how you go up. Okay, we are up to Friday, January 24th, and we have a picture of a wind farm in Queensland. This is from Renew Economy. The title is Halting New Wind Farms While Coal Plants Buckle. Is this the LNP's plan for Queensland? We know our old coal-fired power plants are unreliable in the heat. Now remember, it's summer in Queensland. Now 3 coal units are down unexpectedly in Queensland's summer. This is such an interesting time for the state government to stop assessments of new wind farms. The state of Queensland, the state government of Queensland, stopped evaluating plans for new wind farms because they didn't want new wind farms. This is the LNP, which is the Liberal Nationalist Party. Liberal National Party. Liberal in Australia and in most English-speaking countries means something which is closer to what is meant by conservative in the United States. And they want not to have new wind farms, and so they've cut them off. But what they did not count on is that coal plants don't function all that well in the summer. And, there are various reasons. The one that strikes me the most is there was a coal burning power plant in India that shut off altogether because it didn't have any cooling water. Coal plants, thermal plants in general, coal, nuclear, gas plants, baseload power plants have got cooling towers. They could use nearly identical cooling towers. But the reason is because they have to get rid of heat, excess heat. I talked to an engineer at Vermont Yankee who told me that the waste heat from Vermont Yankee, if it could be provided to the state of Vermont, would have kept every household in Vermont heated. The waste heat from that power plant was about 2/3 of the heat, so that 1/3 of the heat was used to make electricity and the other 2/3 was just lost. And unfortunately, that is a fact among thermal plants. Okay, our next item is from Renews. We have a picture of a wind farm. The title is U.S. Lags Behind Europe on Wind Expansion. The United States is behind European peers on wind power and risks falling behind other major economies like China, according to energy think tank Ember. 11 European countries generated more than 1/5 of their electricity from wind in 2024. Denmark generated 58%. Ireland generated 36%. The United States generated 10%. And that, I think, is somewhat telling. I don't know that we have to go on for that. The next item is from CBS News. We have a picture of Governor Newsom of California. The title is Governor Gavin Newsom signs $2.5 billion wildfire recovery package for Los Angeles County. Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation providing $2.5 billion in funding to recovery efforts in Los Angeles County, where wildfires, including two that are massive and ongoing, actually there were, you could have said that about 4 of them, killed 28 people. I noted today that it's 29, and are leaving behind trails of destruction. I'm going to put that up so that you can see it. Gavin Newsom giving a speech or whatever he's doing there. I think this is, I think this is his inauguration speech in 2023. I will note that President Trump is putting conditions on federal aid to Los Angeles County. President Trump has been doing a number of things that are not legal, and the condition of aid to Los Angeles County is may not be legal. It may be that he is obliged to provide financial support to Los Angeles County. I don't know. We'll see that probably go into court if he does what he was saying he would do. According to the president, there's plenty of water in Northern California, but they need to turn on the valve that will send that down pipes to Southern California. I believe that is not correct. There were other conditions. He wants Northern California in general not to act woke, whatever woke means. It's a word that I don't like much. Okay, we're up to Saturday, January 25th, and we have a picture of an earth mover. This is from ABC News. Trump plans coal as answer to AI power needs, but any boost could be short-lived. I'll read that again. Trump pumps coal as answer to AI power needs, but any boost could be short-lived. President Trump's promise to go all in on fossil fuels includes coal, a reliable but polluting energy source that's been in long decline. He suggested coal can help meet surging electricity demand from the massive data centers needed for artificial intelligence. Well, artificial intelligence has kind of been roiled, as they say, by a Chinese company called DeepSeek. And the United States has put billions of dollars into AI, and our AI is not better than DeepSeek from what I've read. But it's interesting to me, and that means, by the way, that this article is in some respects obsolete. But it's interesting to me that Donald Trump is promoting coal in order to power artificial intelligence. And part of the reason that I find that interesting is because nuclear power has been promoted all over the place as an answer. And nuclear power is not an answer because nuclear power plants have to be built. I should amend that. Nuclear power using new plants is not an answer. The places where there are plants that may be used, 3 Mile Island being one, are places where power plants have been operating and they have been shut down, or they are planned for shutdown. And the artificial intelligence people want them to stay open or be reopened. That apparently is going to happen. I will say coal is not as reliable as nuclear. Coal has its own problems. And according to NextEra Energy, what it calls near-firm solar and near-firm wind, near-firm meaning they are at least as reliable as nuclear power for dispatching electricity during peak demand periods. Near-firm solar and near-firm wind are cheap compared to nuclear. Their electricity, wholesale electricity, costs less than 4 cents per kilowatt hour, where nuclear, according to NextEra Energy, will cost more than 10.5 cents. So the question is, why should we pay 10.5 cents or more when 4 cents is needed? And I don't know where we're going to be keeping coal plants open. But also, Donald Trump in 2016 was campaigning on a slogan, Trump digs coal. And if Donald Trump does, during his current 4-year period, to natural gas and nuclear, what he did to coal last time, natural gas and nuclear are going to be 2/3 of what they are today by the end of Trump's term. When he took office in 2017, there were about 50,000, a few more than that, coal miners in this country, and when he left office, there were about 30,000. So it was a reduction of a lot. Anyway, our next item is from Renews. The title of the item is UK gives consent to Heckington, Fen and West Burton solar farms. UK Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, awarded planning consent to 2 large solar farms in England, totaling almost 900 megawatts of capacity. Approval has been given to Ecotricity's 500 megawatt Heckington Fen and Island Green Power's 480 megawatt West Burton projects. England, there's been a lot of wind power and solar power put up in the UK, particularly wind power. Solar power has been slow to develop because the UK is so far north, much farther north than Vermont. And the situation in England has been pretty much anti-renewable energy for a long time. Not uniformly, but that has been the case. And so England is kind of behind in adopting renewable energy. And what is happening is England is getting its own onshore wind power and solar power plants. And there are a lot of people who say it's about time. Okay, an item coming up from Clean Technica. We have a picture of heat pumps. On the left is a cooling unit for a heat pump, York heat pump, and inside on the right you see the ductless mini split heat pump on the wall. The title is Heat Pumps Outselling Gas Furnaces in America. It's easy to see why this is happening. In addition to providing heated air in the winter and cool air in the summer, heat pumps are far more efficient than conventional heat sources, delivering 3 or 4 times more heat per dollar spent on oil or gas-fired heating equipment or electric baseboard heat. One of the problems with when people talk about efficiency, there are words, and efficiency is one of them, that I hear and I have a little flag go up. You don't know what efficiency means unless you know what it means. And to say that one type of heat is more efficient than another is meaningless unless you're comparing them on some basis. And here we see the basis is the cost. So people are using heat pumps because they're inexpensive to run compared to oil or gas. And that's just the way it is. And it makes a big difference. Okay, we're up to Sunday, January 26th, and we have a picture of women who are smallholder farmers in Kenya. The woman on the left has got a child on her back, and you can just see the child's arm peeking around her right shoulder, and a leg sticking out under her right arm. This is from a publication called The Standard, and the title is Act Urgently on Food Security and Climate Change. With each passing year, farmers find it more difficult to predict growing seasons, with unpredictable rainfall threatening both crops and livestock. The effects of climate change further extend to the oceans, where even fishermen say they find fewer fish. Obviously, we're being hit in terms of food. We must urgently find solutions. I'm seeing more and more material online. People who are interested should really do a Google search or use whatever searching apparatus you want, but look for the Great Green Wall and the things that are happening around the world in restoring deserts, restoring farmland are truly amazing. It gives me hope that we are going to deal with climate change, that we are not just going to deal with it, we are very likely to reverse it, and that means going backwards over the turning points that are supposed to be so dangerous to cross. We have ways to deal with this, and the Great Green Wall is a 3,000-mile long, and I don't have a figure on how wide it is. It varies from one place to another. It might be 60 miles across, it might be 80, I don't know. But what they're doing is people are going out with picks and shovels, and they are digging depressions in the ground that are only at most about 1.5 feet deep. They are half moon shaped with the curved side downhill. So the water comes down the hill, it gets into this thing and is stuck there. And it continues being stuck there until it either evaporates or is drawn into the earth. And once the earth is wetted, it gets drawn into the earth. Plants start growing. Grass is growing. Trees are growing. And as these things grow, they have animals being fed. Plants for human food are growing. It's really impressive. Great Green Wall. Okay, our next picture is the Great Salt Lake. And this is from Clean Technica. And this is more of the material I'm telling you about that has reviving deserts, greening deserts, restoring farmland. The title of this article is Reviving Lake Beds Show the Value of Water Conservation. Clean technology isn't just about technologies like solar panels and batteries. Sometimes reducing our negative impacts on the landscape is as simple as doing less of something or growing crops differently. When we take too much water from the earth, the impacts can be devastating. And for those who are interested, I have mentioned the Great Green Wall. The Great Green Wall goes across Africa from Senegal to Kenya. That's a long ways. There's a Great Green Wall in China. There's a similar thing by a farmer in Australia named I've forgotten his name, but he has a farming technique that is called natural flow. I think it's natural flow. What he's doing is he's building swales, which are like little ponds, except that they're almost always dry. The surface of them, when they have water in them, is level. They don't have a convenient way to flow water downhill, or if they do, it just flows into the next swale. And the idea is, by trapping the water, it will sink into the ground. This will restore the groundwater. Wells will fill up. In one case, I read about a well that was over 100. It was 70 feet deep, and the groundwater, just by human activity, the groundwater was restored to the point where during the rainy season the well was overflowing, and during the dry season you only had to go down 7 or 8 feet to get water, as opposed to 70 feet. We're coming into a different era, and these changes can be brought about by ordinary people who have ordinary tools like shovels and picks and hoes and things like that, and they can make a huge difference, a difference that you can see from space, a difference that is the size of the Great Green Wall. And the cost of doing something like that is not all that great. The Great Green Wall needs about $30 billion to be finished. And I will point out that Elon Musk could just do that. And he wouldn't notice a difference in terms of his bank accounts. I don't know how you notice the difference between having $370 billion and having $400 billion. He would notice the difference in terms of the appreciation people show him. Okay, we have an item from ABC News. And this is a picture of the Palisades fire from space. That's kind of scary. Southern California is about to get soaked. The good and the potentially bad. That's the title. The Los Angeles area is preparing for its first rain since wildfires first broke out weeks ago. That's good news to help dampen the still active fires and soils. But if it's too much rain all at once, it could bring about its own significant issues, including a risk of debris flows, by which the article means such things as mud flows and things that, well, they're talking about debris flows. So this is possibly a mud flow or something similar that will include debris. And the debris will just get pushed around, poisoning water, poisoning shellfish, things like that. This is not good. I have not read much about mud flows, mudslides, landslides, things like that due to rain. However, the rain did come, and it did slow down the fires. Those fires, the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire that we have been reading about, that were 20% contained in the past, are now well over 90% contained. All of the major fires in the Los Angeles area are pretty much above 90% contained. Okay, we're up to Monday, January 27th, and we have a picture This is from Renews. This is a picture of North Sea wind power. That is that's one of the converter stations, and you'll notice the cranes that are on the roof to get things up from ships. The title of this is German North Sea Wind Output Increases by 8%. TenneT transmitted 20.8 terawatt hours. A terawatt hour is 1,000 gigawatt hours. A gigawatt hour is 1,000 megawatt hours. So this is 20.8 million megawatt hours of wind power generated by wind farms in the German North Sea in 2024. This is up 8% compared to the 19.24 terawatt hours in 2023. The total wind feed-in result in Germany came to around 500 terawatt hours in 2024, up from the figure for the previous year, which was 139.56 terawatt hours. So we have a lot of electricity coming in from the North Sea to Germany. Okay, we have an item from ABC News and a picture of rain in a dry landscape. This particular landscape is maybe 100 miles from Los Angeles. I don't know. It's north of Los Angeles. But it is representative of rain on a dry landscape. The title of the article is Rain Brings Relief to Southern California Firefighters, but with a caveat. Now, the caveat here is the same caveat that we had before. Rain fell across Southern California on Sunday, bringing some relief to thousands of firefighters battling multiple major blazes for nearly a month in the Los Angeles area, but also prompting new threats of floods and mudslides in the county's burn-scarred lands. Burn-scarred lands don't absorb water as fast as lands that are not completely full of water, but are not dry. If you drop water on slightly dry land, it'll get absorbed quickly. But on truly parched land, it does not dry out easily. I'm sorry about all the throat clearing. It's something that I feel has to be done, and I don't think about it. Okay, our next item is from Renews. This is a solar array, the round dots that you see arranged in a grid pattern or multiple grid patterns. I don't know what they are. I think they're probably trees. Probably fruit trees grown for agriculture. The title of this is Chinese developers install record 24 gigawatts overseas. Chinese companies installed a record 24 gigawatts of capacity in Belt and Road countries in 2024, with solar and hydropower leading those installations, according to a report from Wood Mackenzie. Solar energy made up 2/3 of new renewable capacity added in 2024, but 48% of the additions were not renewable. So solar energy made up 2/3 of the 52% that were renewable, but 48% were not renewable. China is capitalizing on the reluctance of the United States to develop renewable energy. And as long as we don't develop renewable energy, we lock ourselves out of that market. The one market that I know of that really shows, and it's not a renewable energy market, it's an electric vehicle market, in about 2020, the Chinese started building electric buses like mad. The numbers from 2020 really didn't show that they were moving as quickly as they were. But about 5 years ago, I noticed that Bloomberg had done an inventory of electric buses in the United States. I've said this many times. I apologize to those who have heard it so many times before, but Bloomberg did an inventory of electric buses in the United States and found a number that was something like 650 of them. There were well over 17,000 electric buses in the Chinese city of Shenzhen. There were something like 30 times as many electric buses in Shenzhen as there were in the entire United States. A few months after the inventory, a city in Colombia, what was it? Bogota, Colombia, put in a purchase order for 702 electric buses. And, BYD, which is a Chinese company, was delighted and provided the buses. Half of the buses produced in the world today are electric, more than half. And of those, 90% are made in China. An electric bus is cheaper than a diesel-powered bus except for one thing, and that is the battery. The battery is the most expensive part. BYD is offering buses without batteries for something in the order of $50,000. And if you want to buy one option that you have for a battery is to lease the battery. And leasing a battery and charging the battery together cost less than buying the oil to power a diesel-powered bus. So if you do that, if you buy the bus and lease the battery, you're going to get a bus that is cheaper. It's going to be cheaper to power. It's going to be cheaper to maintain. So why would you want a diesel-powered bus? It's a good question. Okay. Our next item is, we're up to Tuesday, January 28th. We have a solar farm. This is from Renews. The title is Greenbacker Secures $1 billion for a 500 megawatt solar farm. Greenbacker Renewable Energy has secured $960 million in financing to acquire the 500 megawatt Cider solar farm. When it is completed, it will be New York State's largest solar installation. It will use approximately 2,500 acres of land in Genesee County. Construction began in late 2024. So what we're seeing there is this particular solar farm, Greenbacker is making headway on it, and it will be the largest solar farm in New York State. I guess there's not much more to say about that. However, this next one is kind of interesting. This article came from Renews. What you're seeing there is building a tower. This is a tower for a wind turbine. And the title of this article is Enercon puts together Green Steel Alliance. If you haven't heard about green steel before, you should know what it is, because it's something that is on its way. Wind turbine manufacturer Enercon is joining forces with Salzgitter and TM Group to produce a lower emissions steel tower, the first of its kind in Germany. This will make it one of the first onshore wind turbines in Europe to feature a tower made of lower emissions steel, which is referred to as green steel. Green steel is made using hydrogen. I don't know how much carbon goes in. Carbon is something that is used in steel alloys. There's a percentage of carbon that is in a particular alloy. And you can look that up and find out how much carbon is used. And indeed, coal mines, which are called coking mines, or the coal that they produce is called coking coal, is used for manufacture of steel. But a lot of that has been replaced. A lot of the use of steel, aside from the percentage that is in the alloy, a lot of the energy that is used for making steel is coming from hydrogen in green steel. What they've got now is they're making towers, and this tower, if you look at the image, you can see that the tower is being made in sections, and the sections are being taken up one at a time, and they're being bolted together. If this were an offshore wind tower, it might go up in one section, where the whole tower is just one section, or it might go up in two. It's harder to move things around on land than it is to move them around at sea many times. So I'm seeing green steel showing up in a lot of places, and there it is. Okay, The Guardian came up with this next one. These are pictures of, this is a bed of mussels. It's interesting to me that the mussels have barnacles growing on them. The one that's in the middle at the top of the picture that looks kind of white and bumpy is white and bumpy because there are barnacles growing on it. The smaller ones have barnacles too, but not very many. The title for this is Spanish Fishers in Galicia Report Catastrophic Collapse in Shellfish Stocks. A catastrophic collapse in shellfish numbers is reported by Spanish fishers in Galicia. I call it Galicia. I know that there are people who speak Spanish who call it Galicia. The reason for that was that there was an emperor who lisped, and people didn't want to make him feel bad, so they copied his way of speaking. With some stocks falling by as much as 90% in the space of a few years. In 2023, the crop of cockles fell by 80% compared to the previous year, and some species, varieties I should say, of clams fell by 78%, which is pretty close to 80%. That is not good news. As I was reading that, I was thinking about the fact that we can reclaim deserts, and I wonder if we can reclaim the waters that these shellfish grow in. And one way to do that might be to grow seaweed in them, and actually use the seaweed for food. And we will get to that. We're up to Wednesday, January 29th, and we have a picture of a town in England called Minehead. This article came from the BBC. The title is MP Pushes for Tidal Lagoon in the Bristol Channel. Building a tidal lagoon in the Bristol Channel could provide clean energy for 120 years, an MP said. MP is Member of Parliament, not military police. The proposed West Somerset Lagoon would cost $10 billion to build, a third of the cost of a nuclear power plant, and its lifetime would be twice that of a nuclear power plant. So nuclear power would cost 6 times as much altogether over the 120-year period. What's being suggested here is that a a tidal lagoon would be built by putting up a breakwater that would run from Somerset to Wales. The Bristol Channel is very broad. It has very high tides, and you could get a lot of energy out of that. So it's something that people have hopes for. Now, an article from Clean Technica, and as promised, we have a picture of a seaweed farm. The title for the article is "Seaweed Farms Are an Important Carbon Sequestration Strategy." A study by the Oceans 2050 Global Seaweed Project. Can you imagine working for a place called the Oceans 2050 Oceans 2050 Global Seaweed Project? I wonder if people would take you seriously if you said that. Anyway, a study provided by the project found that seaweed farming can be an important method of carbon sequestration. Started in September 2020, the project aims to use seaweed farming to mitigate climate change and restore ocean health. Now, if we restored the ocean health, what would that do for the cockles and mussels and clams that are in decline in various places? And the answer, of course, is if you restore health, they should come back. Some of those animals, they're not very smart animals, by the way. When people eat oysters, very often the oysters are eaten alive. I can tell you that I think an oyster eaten alive is probably no more aware of being eaten alive than an apple is. That's just my guess. You'd have to check it by asking the oyster, but don't expect an answer. Seaweed takes carbon dioxide out of the water, and it uses it for making more of itself. Now, if we're growing seaweed for food, and by the way, I eat seaweed probably 2 meals a week. I get seaweed and other sea things down at the co-op, and I eat it. I like it, but I don't like the fact that it's as tough as it is and gets stuck between my teeth. But I do eat it. And I think seaweed is really good for us in some respects. One of the things about seaweed is if you feed the correct varieties of seaweed to cattle, you can have a 90%, 95% reduction in the methane that they produce. They seem to like it. You don't need to feed a lot. Maybe 0.5% of the feed, as I recall, and I could be wrong about that, would have to be seaweed. But nevertheless, it is seaweed that is used to reduce methane from cattle. It's just one of those things that we can use that is useful for dealing with carbon sequestration, because you harvest the seaweed, and that puts the carbon in that seaweed back into a cycle, but on Earth, on terra firma rather than out at sea. But also, the seaweed will have pieces that fall off and fall to the ocean floor and are not eaten, decompose there, and just that's where their carbon is. So it's good for carbon sequestration. I think the next piece is the last. Yes, it is. We have a picture of a data center. That is a data center. Now you know why they're talking about building nuclear reactors, because they need to provide power to that. This is from Clean Technica, and the title is "What in the World is Going On with AI?" ? On Monday, January 27th, 2025, today, by the way, is the 30th, so this is pretty fresh. The spectacular run-up in the market valuation of big tech companies that are driving the AI revolution forward came to a screeching halt. They ended the trading day with losses totaling over $1 trillion. That is trillion with a T. Why did that happen? Someone in China showed they could do AI a whole lot cheaper. Now, this is something that I'm actually addressing internally. I have an invention that has to do with artificial intelligence, and the market is not interested in, well, I'll put it this way, nobody wants to pay me for that. It may or may not have value, but nobody wants to pay me for it. And I think a fair amount of that might be that they take the attitude, which is famously taken, titled "Not Invented Here." People who run businesses want to develop the businesses, that is businesses apostrophe, the businesses own technology, and they don't want technology from elsewhere. I think basically what has happened is, in the United States, we are in a position where we provide a value for the things that we have that is in terms of dollars. And they want to see a value come out of those things in terms of dollars. And they want to know what that is in advance. So, I'm seeing this, and none of it surprises me, really. Artificial intelligence, I've decided artificial intelligence has to be broken into different types depending upon what it is when it appears. So perhaps I'm not going to be talking about artificial intelligence as much as I'll talk about artificial malice, which is something that I do talk about. Artificial folly. Artificial folly is a good term. Yeah, artificial folly. They're modeling artificial intelligence to a degree after the way a human mind works. And that astonishes me, because it is so obvious that a human mind is not rational. So, the last slide is up. It says, have an incomparably enjoyable week. And that is what I wish for you, that you have an incomparably enjoyable week. So I'll wave goodbye. I know that Nancy would wave goodbye if she were here. Tom Fennell would wave goodbye if he were here. Tom Fennell's cat would wave goodbye if he were here. But I'm alone, so I'll wave goodbye and invite you back next time. Come on back and take a look. Bye.